Couples of Reddit, what's the most unromantic thing that's happened between the two of you that actually is a stronger indication of love than others might think? Definitely pranking each other thoroughly. I spent a little more than a year randomly sending him emails from a man named Nolan who works in customer service, and I made the most ridiculous case for him to solve involving a balloon business. Once in a while, during a slow time at my job, good old Nolan would email him. A last message was about Nolan asking the hubs to join him in a doomsday bunker. I finally decided to tell him the truth on our anniversary, which is on the 1st of April. He got me back this Christmas. He anonymously sent me a super low rent Chevy Chase coloring book. I greatly dislike Chevy Chase, to put it mildly. He enjoyed me plotting revenge against my friends, and even egged me on. He finally admitted the truth on New Year's Eve. I plan to retaliate in the near future. Best $10 I ever spent. My husband acted as the lone pallbearer for our newborn son's funeral. I carried him for nearly his whole life, and my husband carried him to his final rest. I lost my daughter 2 days before my due date in August. I read that phrase somewhere. I carried you your whole life, and I'll love you for all of mine. We cremated my daughter's remains and kept them. There was no service. My husband picked out the urn. It has a little white bird on the lid. It sits on our mantle. I'm so sorry. It's been so hard. My wife was battling cancer and couldn't poop from all the medication she was given, so I had to give her a suppository. Once it took effect, I had to stay in the bathroom and watch her because she thought she might pass out. True love. I'm prone to developing cysts. Mostly they just hang out, and sometimes go away on their own, but every once in a while one will get infected randomly. I had one such cyst on the back of my neck a few years ago. It was so painful, and I was in agony. One day, it just burst open on its own. I won't go into detail, but suffice it to say, it was really disgusting. My husband is very squeamish about these kinds of things, but without hesitation, he very lovingly made sure that all of the infectious material was purged, cleaned out the crater it left in its wake, and put antibiotic cream on it. He religiously checked and cleaned the wound twice a day until it healed, and would put clean bandages on it as needed. I don't even mind the scar it left, because it reminds me of his TLC, even though I'm 100% sure it grossed him out. Our first child was 8 weeks premature because I got preeclampsia and needed an emergency C-section. I was super freaked up from all the drugs, magnesium sulfate, anesthesia and oxycodone. When I was finally able to get out of bed and shower, he helped my crying, hormonal, leaking body sit in the shower chair and take a much needed shower, helped dry me off and put on clean pajamas and those rhino-sized pads for all the goo, back into my wheelchair, where I promptly threw up all the crap that had been pumped into me over the 24 hours after my surgery. He turned me around, wheeled me back in, and started over without even a sigh. P.S. He loves that story and peacocks around whenever I tell it. I told him how popular he was with the story here on Reddit, and he wants you all to know that he even tried to catch the barf in his hands when it came and caught my undigested pain pills. When I tell him this, he is going to want a steak for dinner. Also, for anyone curious, the baby was 2.5 pounds at birth and spent 5 weeks in NICU. She is now 8, happy and healthy, and I went on to have another baby 2 years later that was a full-term bundle of cuteness with no drama. Now I must go make them both eggs for breakfast because they are starving. Magnesium sulfate is freaking awful. I remember my first dizzy butt shower after having my 7-week early baby as being the best one of my entire life. My husband guarded the door so I could have 15 minutes of peace and clean off 6 days worth of sweat, blood and tears. He earned a lot of points that week. I had a severe attack of gastroenteritis. It was coming out of both ends. So I'm lying in bed and I suddenly have to vomit, so I try to run to the bathroom. I fail and proceed to vomit and poop all over the floor. He cleans me, the floor and the bathroom up, tucks me back into bed with some water, gives me a kiss and strokes my greasy and tangled head till I fall asleep. Most unromantic scenario ever, but he was there to help me get through it despite how gross it was. When I tried to apologize for him having to do all that, he said, "It's fine, sweetie. I love you and I know if the roles were reversed you'd do the same. And I would too." 4 months into dating my husband, boyfriend at the time obviously, he had to take me to my colonoscopy. I didn't have any family in town and it just made sense for him to take me. Afterwards I laid in his bed while he tried to convince me to pass gas so I wouldn't be in pain. He started farting to try to make me feel better. LOL. A few hours after resting, I had to go to the OB-GYN to get my IUD in. So he had to take care of me all day from being sore in my nether regions. To top it off, it was his birthday. It was the single most selfless thing anyone has ever done for me. She was so sick that she was laying on the floor crapping herself and puking on herself. I carried her to the bathroom and bathed her, then put her to bed. I then cleaned up the mess. When your wife has a tough pregnancy, she sometimes needs help with basic human processes which are normally quite private things. I love the way you phrase this. The second night we had overnight relations, he shouted at 3 AM while we were fast asleep. Nothing like changing the sheets at 3 AM. We're married now. Crap the bed on the second night over. Husband material. When I was in labor with our third baby, I had to crap. Like so bad. The nurses were wanting to check me and make sure the baby wasn't crowning. I knew it was legitimately just needing to poop. It wasn't my first rodeo, obviously. The nurse told me I could go poop on the condition that husband had to accompany me in case the baby really did try to make an appearance. My poor husband sat in the hospital bathroom with me while I crap and held my hand through contractions as I pooped. I felt closer to him after that than I ever had before. It was an unbelievably intense 15 minutes and I've never been so vulnerable in front of him. We look back now and laugh about it. Married almost 7 years, my potty time didn't scare him off. I got too drunk one night and puked shortly after arriving home with my BF. Didn't make it to the toilet in time, so I puked in the hallway. My BF cleaned it up while I continued puking in the toilet, undressed me, filled the bath up with like 2 inches of warm water, and helped me lay down in the bathtub. Then he washed my hair since it had vomit in it. The whole time I'm crying and apologizing and he just continues to take care of me. Then he said he was going to go get me clean clothes and I sobbed, "Don't leave me, I'm going to drown." So he dried me off, carried me to our bedroom, dressed me, got me water and crackers, and still fricked me when I felt better. I laughed pretty hard at the "don't leave me, I'm going to drown." Been having a tough 2 weeks that causes my anxiety to get high, which in turn causes me to become depressive and fold into myself, which my husband recognizes as me trying to freeze everything out until I inevitably explode and have a nervous breakdown. The last 2 weeks he's left me alone, stepped in to help more with the kids, and redirecting them so they also leave me alone. Now that I'm more or less better, the things that were stressing me out are resolving, and did not have a nervous breakdown. I went and cuddled with him last night and thanked him for giving me space, because he knew I really needed it. Also, he let me wax his taint once. June of 2017, I had an accident that resulted in my left index being amputated at the first knuckle, and limited use of my left thumb. It was a hard time for me, and for my girlfriend. I was unemployed for 4 months. I had just bought a brand new car, and we had just brought home a new kitten the week before as well. When it happened, she worked through her anxiety and depression to be my rock in my time of need. She helped me more than I will ever be able to thank her for, and she still does. I'm reminded constantly of the struggles we went through, and I'm thankful for the amount she's done for me, even if she doesn't realize just how much she did. If she finds this, I love you, Tony. I'm happy for you. However, this is Reddit, and you mentioned a kitten, so I'm here about the cat tax. I had an awful stomach bug. I dry heaved so hard I fainted and fell out of bed. When my husband came upstairs to check out the sound of me hitting the floor, he found me puking into a trash can while I crapped myself. He gathered up the sheets I pooped on, helped me to the bathroom to clean up and put clean sheets on our bed. He then took care of the crap sheets and never mentioned it again. We both got viscous food poisoning from Chipotle. We both had diarrhea and we were both vomiting for about 10 hours straight. We had one bathroom. It was a dang nightmare. I won't go too much into details because it was freaking gross, but the fact we still wanted to frick each other once we recovered was a really good sign. I am assuming you meant vicious, but viscous makes it better. When I was first DX with Crohn's disease, my so would have to carry me to the toilet and I would scream and cry from the pain of crapping while he kneeled in front of me holding me while I cried. She died 10 years ago. I have not dated since, but while we were married she vomited the whole time. She had serious morning sickness that lasted all day for both pregnancies, for 9 months. Then she had cancer and chemo, so more vomiting. She vomited almost every day we were married, but I always held her hair. I am so very sorry for your loss. I'm sure you were a wonderful comfort to her. I have bipolar disorder and have had 2 episodes of psychotic mania, and he has dealt with them like a champ. Not just enduring them but getting me safely to the hospital and being totally understanding and loving about it. I think that would really scare a lot of people, if not make them jump ship entirely. I think it's a sign of my great trust in him that in the midst of being out of my mind with grandiose delusions, paranoia, etc., I heard him say to Rit, "We have to go to the hospital now," and I believed him and went along with it. Mental illness is serious business, but everyone deserves to have a partner who is truly loving, accepting, and supportive. I am very lucky I do. My wife likes squeezing blackheads out of my back. At normal glance it doesn't look like I have any. I can't see them using a mirror, but it's like a mission to her. I freaking wish my boyfriend would let me do this. We just moved in together in 2015. That summer some weird tummy bug was going around and I got it. We were watching a movie when unexpectedly my stomach just gave one big churn, and before I could get up to run to the bathroom, I puked and shat myself at the same time. My stomach cramps were so unbearable that I could hardly lift my head up, but he carried me in all my mess, helped me to shower, cleaned up my disgusting mess and nursed me back to health. Every time I needed to go to the bathroom, he'd carry me, rub my back, hold out the bucket, etc. I was mortified, but to him it was normal and he knows I'd do the same for him. In sickness and in health. We spend the majority of our time at home doing our own separate things. We have 2 TVs in our living room, so I'll often be playing video games or watching podcasts while she watches Netflix or YouTube. We also spend a lot of time in our own separate study rooms, where mine is for making music and hers is for getting her career work done. I believe respecting each other needs to do things alone and not always needing to do things together every day is the single biggest reason we've lasted as long as we have, and we just celebrated our 13-year anniversary. This all day. You cannot be together all the time. He stayed with me through my laryngeal cancer, through my permanent loss of my voice from it, through several surgeries, through several rounds of chemo and radiation, through my other tumors, and through me putting us into a colossal amount of debt from my medical bills. That last one hurt him at work, since it caused his employer to move him to less important projects as he was deemed a security risk with $350,000 plus of debt. And his employer has that policy to try to prevent people in loads of debt from having access to secrets they can sell. My then girlfriend and I went to visit my parents about 90 miles from home after eating Christmas dinner at her parents', so we could go to see a play with the whole family the next day. We got to my parents' home okay and started getting ready for bed. Everyone was already asleep when I started feeling ill. I vomited once or twice in the toilet and then started the non-stop diarrhea. I sat there crapping like the world was ending while vomiting into a trash can. My girlfriend did her best to take care of me when it hit her too. Luckily I had stopped, and so she took her turn evacuating out of both ends. While I waited for the next wave to come, there was only one toilet we could use. After taking turns back and forth a couple times, we both realized this wasn't going to end anytime soon, and there was going to come a time when we would both have to poop at the same time, and honestly neither of us had the strength to hold it back for more than the time it took to make it to the toilet from the bed. I remember looking at her as we both laid in bed racked in pain while it felt like something was trying to claw its way out of our bodies. I told her if the time came when we both had to go at the same time, I would squat next to her in the bathtub and crap there so she could have the toilet. She told me she loved me, and we managed to survive the most horrible night I have ever experienced together. We are now married. I recently had a second heart catheterization to check my heart for blockages. Thankfully there were none. Unfortunately this time they needed to go through my femoral artery in my groin and I needed to remain on bed rest for about 4 hours after the procedure. I had not eaten all day in preparation for the surgery, so when I got out I was famished. The nurse brought me hospital dinner, but I could not sit upright to feed myself. My lovely wife of 10 years, who has been a solid rock for me through this ordeal, was excited at the opportunity to feed me. I'm only 32 years old, so being in this predicament and being unable to feed myself was rather humbling. She happily cut my roast beef and potatoes and fed me a bite at a time. You could just tell that she loved being able to serve me in this way. It was not in any way a burden, or a chore, or a nuisance. She didn't take advantage of the situation to make a humiliating "here comes the airplane" joke. She just carefully fed me and saw to my needs. I know in her heart she had felt rather useless because all my fear and anxiety was pent up inside. She loved having some way to show that she was there for me in a weak and frankly scary moment of my life. She is much better than I deserve and I am so crazy in love with her. Oh, and just for the record, it would have been cool with me if she made a silly joke while feeding me. We have a silly, playful relationship. She's my best friend, so it would have been cool. Now I feel terrible because I know I would have made the "here comes the airplane" joke. My husband fished our miscarried fetus out of the toilet with a slotted spoon, put it into a Ziploc bag and finally into a zippered tote bag before we went to the doctor. At the time, I was in shock and didn't want to look at the fetus. My partner and I went on a trip together in 2017 that ended in Washington, D.C. On the last day of our vacation, he got food poisoning, but we didn't realize it until after we'd walked the 2 miles from the train back to the hotel, by which point I was limping on some pretty bad blisters and just wanted to sit down and elevate my feet. He sat down on the bed to rest and fell asleep before even getting his shoes off, and then I noticed that he had a really high fever. For a little while I tried to just keep a cold cloth on his face and make him drink water, but his fever got so high that he started to hallucinate and at one point he wasn't sure who I was. The ice machine was broken and the manager of the hotel wouldn't help me, but the security guard offered to keep an eye on our room to make sure that my partner didn't wander off if I wanted to go buy some ice and medicine. So I put my shoes back on and limped down the hill back toward the nearest pharmacy. I recall thinking to myself at that moment, man, I must really love this guy. If it was just me I'd just suffer. Thankfully, I found a little tapa's place I hadn't previously noticed on the way there and they were able to give me some ice. When I took my shoes off, my feet were bleeding. I spent all night nursing my partner through the worst case of food poisoning I've ever seen and managed to get us to the airport on time the next day. It was pretty par for the course for that trip. It was our worst vacation ever and we're pretty sure we should just never go back to DC. But at least it's memorable. Lot of poop comments. Here's another. He was laying on his back on the floor. I stood over him and pulled my pants off my butt to pretend to fart. Well, I was incredibly sick and didn't even feel the squirt of watery crap I released on his belly. The utterly shocked face he made was the only indication something was amiss. As soon as I realized, I freaked out, practically tore his shirt over his shoulders and head to clean it up. He was only ever concerned with me being okay, never shamed me or made fun. It was a joke between us instantly, and when it became evident I needed surgery I felt it added a degree of excuse. Now it's 7 years later, and we still laugh when he says matter-of-factly, "You pooped on me," and I reply, full of wine, "I was sick. I needed Suagieri." I wish I could have seen that from his perspective. You just out of the blue pulled your pants down and crap on him. Hahaha. Had extreme morning sickness, vomited a few times between the hall and the toilet, and he had to clean it up all the time. He also did all the house chores for 2 months while I was sick with the extreme morning sickness. Anyone asking why I don't have a dang bucket? First off, this part happened before we realized I had an extreme case. This is our first child, around the start of week 5 of my PG. After the 2 or 3 times this happened at the weekend so he was home, that he had to clean my puke from the hall, I did get a bucket, but around that time I got triggered by every sight and smell that having to puke in a bucket and having to see and smell my puke enhanced more puking. I flush immediately after stuff come out. And since my husband would be at work, I cannot bear having to clean the bucket each time, as I will not be able to take the smell of it, and of course I cannot let it just sit and stew close to me until he comes home and cleans it. My sense of smell at the time could compete with a bloodhound's. I ended up staying close to the toilet, in the bedroom, which was 2 meters away, or just in the bathroom. One time when I was pregnant, I puked into my pants while I was on the toilet. Another time I was standing at a screen door and I forcefully vomited right through the screen. The miracle of life. My girlfriend was just leaving as my roommate came home. I walked her out to her car and came back inside. My roommate said, "Dude, did you wreck the toilet? It's clogged bad." I instantly responded, "Totally did. My bad. I'll take care of it. I hadn't crap all day. It was my girlfriend." I had a brief second to think it through and took the fall, and had to go buy a plunger. It is a sign of love in our relationship. Plot twist: your roommate was the one who clogged the toilet, not your girlfriend. We've been married 13 years, together for 17. Early on in our marriage, we agreed to keep our petty grievances with each other between the two of us. That has made such a difference. I never worry that my husband will tell his friends about something embarrassing I might have done, that he will ultimately forget but they will remember, or him running off to call his mom if we have a disagreement. And he never has to worry about me bitching to my girlfriends about him not putting the toilet seat down. We have more respect for each other than that. If you ever notice, it's insane the amount of crap talking people do against their spouses over stupid things. None of us are perfect, and I'd hate to be vilified by the person who loves me most over a dumb mistake I might have made. Freaking yes. My co-workers drive me nuts griping about their husbands all the time. They have made comments about how great my relationship is, but honestly I just keep the petty crap to myself. I respect my wife and would never talk crap about her. She's my life partner. I had MRSA and my wound had to be packed with silver nitrate and wound tape to assure it didn't close over before healing. That meant my relatively new boyfriend was 2x daily, putting me in agonizing pain and first pulling blood and pus-soaked packing material out of a hole in my arm. He was then ruthlessly shoving clean materials back in. I knew then he was the one. We've been happily married over 10 years now. My husband had a thrombosed hemorrhoid that needed an incision. After the procedure I helped him make sure it was healing properly and shrinking by looking into his butt every day. I needed to make sure there was no infection. If that ain't love, I don't know what is. I totally feel everyone's pain that has to suffer with the hemorrhoids. It blows. Glad we have a forum that we can open up on. It tain't love, that's for sure. I scratched an itch on my foot using his heel callus. He looked at me, asked if I really just did that, then we cackled till we had tears streaming down our faces. Love, man. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.